So sometimes if you have tricky limits, for lack of a better word, one of the things you always want to do is make sure you analyze the limits from the left and the right. So if a limit feels kind of complicated, especially at graphics and with compositions, make sure you check the limits from the left and the right, okay? Because it may not be as obvious as you might think. Okay, so we have a graph of these functions, and we want to compute the following limits. X approaches 2 of f of g of x. Now, initially you might say, well, as x approaches 2, right, like the limit doesn't exist for g of x. So you might be like, well, it doesn't exist. But let's actually evaluate it from the left and the right. So if I go 2 from the left of f of g of x, this becomes f of what? Well, if I'm approaching 2 from the left, g of x is going to approach 1. So it's going to be f of 1. So it's going to be like, limit. So then you're going to say the limit as x approaches what? So it's definitely just equal to 1 the whole time. It's actually not even approaching anything, right? Because it's not even getting closer. It is 1, right? It's not it's getting closer to 1. It's a constant. It is 1. So it's just exactly equal to f of 1. And f of 1 in this instance is 2. And then if you look at the limit as x approaches 2 from the right, f of g of x, then it's just f of negative 1. And f of negative 1 is clearly something up here. I don't know, what is that? That's like, 1.5 or something, 1.5. But it's not equal to 2, and so therefore this one definitely doesn't exist, okay? But it's important that you kind of check to make sure, because it's just because this doesn't exist, it's possible that it was. So that one kind of worked out like it doesn't exist, right? That makes sense. How about x approaching 1 of g of f of x? Well, let's look at the left and the right of this one. Let's go from the left. Now I'm approaching 1 from the left for f of x, the inner function, right? And that means that this thing is approaching 0 from the right. So I can write it like this. Limit as f of x approaches 0 from the right. Why do I say 0 from the right? Because the y values are approaching 0 and they're positive, right? They're coming from values greater than there. And that would be of g of f of x, right? And then now you're saying you're approaching 0 from the right of this guy, and that's going to equal 1, okay? Now let's look at it from the left, from the right. What is f of x approaching? Well, we're going to approach 0 from the left. F of x approaches 0 from the left of g of f of x. And then if we're approaching 0 from the left, yeah, it's going to just approach 1, right? So therefore, this is equal to 1. Okay? How about as x approaches to f of 1, right? F of 1 times g of x. Now g of x, so f of 1 is 2, and g of x from the left and the right are different values. So if I look at it from the left, f of 1 I can just replace with 2. 2 times g of x. From the left, it's approaching 1, so this would be positive 2. And then from the right, it's going to approach negative 1, so 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So this one does not exist because the limits from the left and the right don't match. How about this one? Limit as x approaches 1. Let's look from the left of this, f of x, g of x plus 1. So for f of x, you're approaching 1 from the left. From the left, you're going to be approaching 0. And for g of x, so like when you're approaching 1, you're doing like g of 2. You're going 2 from the left, and that's going to just equal 1. That's equal to 0. And then you look at the limit as x approaches 1 from the right. From the right, f of x approaches 0. And g of 2 from the right approaches negative 1. And that equals 0. So this is one of those cases where, if as x approaches 1 or x plus 1 is approaching 2, yes, the g of x is approaching 2 different values from the left and the right. So you're inclined to might say like, well, it doesn't match. It's not the same from the left and right. But because you're multiplying it by the 0 of this guy, it doesn't really matter. The left and the right are 0. So that's why it's tricky with these graphs and composition of functions. It's tricky with these kinds of, these that you make sure you do the limits left and the right. How about x approaches to the absolute value of g of x? Well, look at the left again. From the left, you're approaching 2 from the left. All right? It's going to approach 1, right? And then from the right, you're going to approach -1. So it's the absolute value of -1, which is equal to 1. So the left and the right both match, so this equals 1 there. Okay. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you found it really helpful. If you'd like more support, maybe you need more multiple choice practice, maybe you just need more guidance and things like that, I have plenty of information on my website. If you look in the description below and go to www.bothellstemcoach.com, I will explain all the ways I help students be successful in their AP classes.